I most recently came back to the States last year, and I had lived in Singapore for over 3 years. I was 26 when I moved to Singapore. For context, I am Taiwanese American, so I have roots here in California. I grew up here, I have my community here, but I think being abroad has taught me a lot. I get this question asked a lot, which is, why did you decide to make the move back? And this is going to be all the reasons why I did. To be honest, I feel like this decision was ongoing for maybe 2 to 3 months. It was not an easy decision. I really liked my life in Singapore. I loved my friendship circles there. I was creating a lot of content. I just felt like I was living in paradise for the most part. And I think I just had this sense of like Peter Pan syndrome, which was not being able to grow up. Everything was kind of just the same over and over again. I was doing the same things. I was hanging out with the same people, but in the sense where like I didn't feel like I was growing. Like this part of my life was not growing. And I realized afterwards that a lot of my friends were quite younger, meaning that they were early in their career, they were going out a lot, and then my guy friends were also around my age, but they didn't really think about settling. I think the idea of like settling down was not on anyone's radar. And for some reason, I think after 3 years in Singapore, I started to think a lot about settling down, thinking more about like stability and finding a life partner. And I think when I was living in Singapore, all of the things that I had was very disposable, in the sense where it was like cheap quality. I maybe had like one postcard on my wall. Everything that I had, I felt like I could part with, like I didn't really care about it. And so I think that mentality just made everything feel very temporary. I mean, in hindsight, there's so many great things about Singapore. I think it was just after being there for 3 years, I wasn't where I wanted to be, and I think I was just feeling a lot like homesickness and wanting to be closer to my family and eventually settling down. I spent like 2 to 3 months going over this, like talking to my friends in Singapore, like why they decided to stay. And a lot of them decided to stay because they had a huge, strong community there, or they were with a partner already and they were like, you know, raising a family in Singapore. And then I had friends who actually moved back to the States after a year because they just felt like they thrived better over there. So I think I talked to a multitude of different opinions. In the end, I made the hard decision to move back because I felt like in my gut it was the right thing to do, to be closer to family. I never reunite with like some of my best friends. Everything in life is temporary, but I think in my late 20s, early 30s, I wanted to be in a place like California. Dating in Singapore was significantly harder. I mean, obviously because the dating pool is so much smaller. I think during the pandemic, not a lot of people were like traveling in or out. Maybe like specific to me, the dates that I went on were not as interesting or exciting. And so I think for those 3 years, I didn't really date in Singapore. I did go on a couple of dates, but I didn't find anyone that was like made me like, wow, like I'm really into this person. When I went back to California, I started dating more, and I feel like perhaps the people in California were more around like the kind of people that I wanted to date. And so dating in Singapore was really fun. I have friends who found partners in Singapore. Maybe for me, my experience was just not that great for some reason, primarily because everyone's so transient. That's a whole different story. But I will say I am very happy with my boyfriend right now, and it worked out for the best. It's a very strange feeling. I don't know how to explain it when you realize like there are certain things about your hometown, or maybe the way that you grew up, that you really missed. I remember during the end of my time in Singapore, I was like eating hamburgers like all the time, like Shake Shack, like, you know, fries and burgers for some weird reason. I think it was because I was like craving like more American food. I think I just like missed parts of California, like the beautiful redwood forests, like being by the ocean, salt breeze, and like kind of sometimes like the changing leaves in autumn. I mean, we don't have 4 seasons here, but the leaves kind of change. Taking road trips and California niche things, like certain restaurants that I loved here, certain things that I could have access to. The phase that I'm in right now, which is now I'm like in my early 30s, my head space is more geared towards like stability and like figuring out like the type of future that I want. And I feel like I can do that best here. However, I think the future holds a lot of potential and opportunities. So I think the idea of retiring or settling down when I have kids or a family in Taiwan or Singapore is still very valid, and it's still, I think it still can happen. Yeah, in hindsight, I think I just journaled a lot, and I was like rereading my journal entries, and I think there were patterns of like confusion of like, should I go back? Like, these are the reasons why I should go back. I think a lot of it boiled down to the point of missing family and wanting to be closer to my best friends and like getting to witness and be part of their lives. I think I was missing out on a lot of those things. I missed out on a lot of weddings and like very monumental things that happen in their lives. So I think that was probably the biggest gravitational pull for me. Last thoughts. Do I regret any of this? Do I regret going to Singapore? Do I regret leaving? Do I regret coming back here? I don't regret anything. It's like a tree, right? You know how like a tree has like different roots and then it's just more roots and roots and roots? Like your life is basically that. And so a lot of the decisions that you make, you don't know what the outcomes are. And I think to some people that's really scary. But I think for me, I'm like, that's exciting. There's like so much potential opportunity. Who knows if I will be in California in the next 5 years. But just for now, this is the place that I want to be, and I don't have any regrets on making this decision. I think the only thing that I'm sad about is I can't be in 2 places at one time. And so I do miss my friends in Singapore. I still talk to them all the time on WhatsApp. We do voice notes, we do like catch-up calls. Some of them are actually going to be in Taiwan in March with me. Some are moving back to the Bay Area. It's kind of crazy how things just kind of come full circle. So I would say that life is just, it's never going to be linear, and I think any decision that I make it with gusto, and I make it moving forward, and I think that's how everyone should approach life. So I hope this has given you kind of like a comprehensive perspective on why I ended up leaving Singapore and moving back to the States. These are my personal experiences. I cannot speak on behalf of everyone who left, but I hope you found this insightful, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave comments below. I would be happy to answer them.